A new Viking stadium, a $566 million bonding bill, and homeowner property tax relief. Those are just a few of the projects to come out of this year's 2012 legislative session. It was a heated session at times, and local lawmakers today took time to reflect on the legislative session at a press conference in Bemidji. Jamil Donath tells us what lawmakers say were the major successes and failures this year.
Dennis, after 3 months of constant commotion at the Capitol, the legislative session came to an end Thursday after the Senate passed the final bill to finance the Viking Stadium. But as the dust settles on this year's legislative agenda, lawmakers are still kicking up dirt over the outcome of the session. And in Bemidji today, local legislators also discussed and debated bipartisan efforts, efficiency, and the pros and cons of this year's session.
We can do better.
6 lawmakers representing the northern Minnesota region spent the early morning measuring the outcome of the 2012 legislative session today at a public discussion in Bemidji.
There's plenty of kudos to go around and plenty of blame to go around.
Senators and representatives and Democrats and Republicans all had mixed feelings about this year's session.
We raise money for fish and football. And where are our priorities as a state when that's what we do?
We've restored the reserves. Paid back some school shift, and an economy that is really taken off in Minnesota.
Some say there was too much spending.
We've got $1.5 billion that we have out there in bonds, which sometimes I think is maybe not good for not only Bemidji but for the rest of the state.
While others were more optimistic about the amount of work legislators were able to accomplish in the end.
There was a collective sigh of relief for the DNR in northwestern Minnesota when those license fees were paid.
Removing the deficit was a big thing. We made some reform. I'm very proud of the 2 bonding bills we passed.
And most of the action in this year's session wasn't until the tail end, which some blame on bad politics.
We had a lot of time. We could have done a lot more if we'd simply applied ourselves.
That includes big ticket items like the Viking Stadium and the $566 million bonding bill.
The split in the majority in the Senate was quite obvious to those of us that were there.
We talk about bipartisanship, but we've never really been able to put politics out of the picture.
Lawmakers say lack of communication and compromise were the cause of failed projects like a Bemidji Veterans Home and the MAGIC Act, which would have given more control to local government.
We passed the MAGIC Act early on in the Senate and just ran into a stone wall in the House.
I tell folks it felt like I was in grade school because we'd come in, we'd recess. We'd come in, we'd recess. We'd come in, we'd recess. We didn't do much.
But legislators did agree on one thing, that all major accomplishments that came out of this session were because of bipartisan support.
That says something for working together, and I'm very proud of that, very proud I was a part of it.
The bonding bill and to the Vikings bill. Whether you agree with them or you disagree with them, they were completed, and they were completed on a bipartisan basis.
So just like it was in session, there were many disagreements on both sides about the outcome of the 2012 legislature. But local lawmakers were all on the same side when it came to supporting local projects that were included in the bonding bill.
If you've enjoyed this segment of Lakeland News, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to Lakeland Public Television.